Why the palace hides love. Inside royal protocol, in the glittering world of royalty, silence is often louder than scandal, and nowhere is that silence more carefully engineered than in the private life of the young woman destined to become queen of, because when the cameras flash and the flags rise and the orchestras play, what the public sees is ceremony, discipline, and continuity, but what they do not see is the intricate machinery of protocol working tirelessly behind palace walls to ensure that certain things remain unseen, unspoken, and undisputed, especially matters of the heart. From the day she was born as the first daughter of Anne, Léonor was never simply a child, she was the living embodiment of Spain's constitutional future, a symbol carefully protected in a country where the monarchy stands not as an absolute power but as a stabilizing force above politics, and because of that delicate position, every aspect of her life is filtered through an invisible but unyielding framework known as royal protocol, a system that does not exist merely to choreograph curtsies and seating arrangements but to safeguard legitimacy, neutrality, and public trust. When people ask why the palace appears to hide her love life, the assumption is often drama, secrecy, or control, yet the reality is more complex and more strategic, because for an heir apparent, romance is never just romance, it is diplomacy, optics, risk management, and long-term institutional planning woven together in a tapestry that must not unravel. Spain's modern monarchy has endured moments of intense scrutiny in recent decades, learning through experience that perception can shape survival, and so the current generation has adopted a philosophy of cautious transparency, open about duty, careful about intimacy, and within that philosophy lies the understanding that premature exposure of a young heir's relationships could invite distraction, politicization, or even destabilizing narratives at a time when the institution relies on consistency and moral authority. Léonor's title as Princess of Asturias connects her directly to a historic region and a centuries-old line of succession, reminding citizens that she represents continuity across diverse territories and identities, and in such a context, even the background of a potential partner can spark debates about class, nationality, ideology, or symbolism, turning what should be a private youthful experience into a national conversation before it has even had the chance to mature naturally. Protocol, therefore, functions as a shield, not necessarily against love itself, but against the volatility of public reaction, because in the digital age rumors travel faster than official statements, and a single photograph taken out of context can become a headline interpreted in countless ways, each carrying implications far beyond the individuals involved. Imagine the scenario: a casual friendship misconstrued as romance, amplified by speculation, dissected on talk shows, linked to political affiliations or family histories, and suddenly the heir to the throne is trending not for her constitutional training or public service but for gossip, and the palace, tasked with protecting both the individual and the institution, must decide whether to confirm, deny, or remain silent, knowing that any response feeds the cycle. This is why discretion becomes doctrine, why absence of information is often intentional rather than evasive, and why the young princess's personal milestones unfold far from the public eye. It is not that she is forbidden from forming attachments, but that those attachments are allowed to grow, or fade, without becoming prematurely burdened by the expectations of a nation. Royal protocol also accounts for timing. Because Léonor's current phase of life is defined by preparation, academic study abroad, official engagements, and military training designed to equip her for a constitutional role that demands discipline and resilience, and during such formative years, the palace prioritizes focus on duty over narratives that could distract from her development as a future sovereign. Her appearances are carefully curated to emphasize responsibility, cultural engagement, and service, reinforcing the image of a steady and capable heir, and introducing a romantic storyline into that carefully balanced portrayal risks shifting attention from institutional continuity to personal drama, something modern monarchies across Europe have learned to manage with extreme care. Furthermore, the legacy of the Spanish crown includes periods when public confidence wavered, and the lesson drawn from those experiences is that stability depends not only on legal frameworks but on emotional credibility, on the public's belief that the royal family embodies integrity and prudence, and in that climate, even the most innocent teenage relationship can be magnified into a test of judgment. Protocol therefore demands patience, urging that any serious partnership emerge only when it is mature enough to withstand scrutiny and aligned enough with the responsibilities of the throne to avoid controversy. Beyond politics and perception, there is also the human dimension, often overlooked in sensational narratives, because shielding Léonor's love life may also be an act of parental protection, a recognition by King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia that their daughter deserves, at least for a few more years, the space to experience ordinary emotions without the distortion of constant public commentary. Growing up under global observation already limits spontaneity, And by maintaining privacy around her romantic experiences, the palace may be attempting to preserve fragments of normalcy in an otherwise extraordinary existence. Yet the tension remains palpable. The world is fascinated by royal romance, drawn to fairy tales and engagements and balcony kisses, and media speculation thrives in the absence of confirmed information, creating a paradox in which silence both protects and fuels curiosity. Still, from an institutional standpoint, the calculation is clear. Better to endure speculation than to risk misalignment with constitutional expectations. Royal protocol in Spain, though modernized, retains unwritten principles shaped by history, emphasizing that the heir must embody unity, avoid overt political entanglements, and project moral steadiness. And because personal relationships can intersect unpredictably with social and political landscapes, discretion becomes a strategic necessity. Consider how even in non-royal contexts, the partners of public figures undergo intense vetting, their backgrounds analyzed for potential conflicts of interest, their past statements resurfaced, their associations examined, and multiply that scrutiny exponentially for someone who will one day serve as head of state, and the logic of caution becomes apparent. Any future consort of Spain must be prepared not only for ceremonial duties but for a lifetime of symbolic representation, understanding regional sensitivities, cultural nuances, and the expectation of neutrality, and such readiness cannot be assumed in a fleeting adolescent romance. Thus the palace waits, not out of denial of love, but out of respect for the scale of what that love would eventually entail. It is also important to recognize that modern monarchies operate within democratic societies where public opinion carries tangible influence, and therefore image management is not superficial vanity but a core component of institutional endurance. And in that environment, carefully staged visibility, official portraits, national addresses, charitable appearances, contrast sharply with deliberately unstaged privacy in matters of the heart. Critics may interpret this as concealment, yet supporters view it as prudence, a way to ensure that when Léonor eventually does present a partner to the nation, it will be with confidence, clarity, and readiness, rather than as a reaction to rumor. History offers countless examples of heirs whose romantic choices reshaped public perception of their crowns, sometimes strengthening them through relatable love stories, sometimes straining them through controversy, and Spain's current approach suggests a determination to avoid unnecessary turbulence. Ultimately, the notion that the palace hides her love simplifies a far more nuanced reality. It manages exposure in alignment with protocol designed to protect both a young woman and a centuries-old institution. Love, in this context, is not suppressed but sequenced, allowed to unfold in private until it harmonizes with the responsibilities awaiting her. And perhaps that is the quiet truth behind the silence. Inside the ornate halls and guarded courtyards, amid constitutional briefings and ceremonial rehearsals, Princess Léonor is navigating the same emotional terrain as any young person, but she does so with the awareness that her choices echo far beyond her own happiness, resonating through a nation that sees in her not just a daughter, a student, or a friend, but the future Queen of Spain. And until the day arrives when heart and history can stand side by side without conflict, royal protocol will continue its vigilant watch, not to deny her love, but to ensure that when it steps into the light, it strengthens rather than shakes the crown.